My name is Mayor Jones. I'd like to thank the media for being here for this press release and update of the situation that we have here in Wagoner, downtown historic district that caught on fire last night at approximately 5:37 p.m. We had a person of interest. His name was Roy Whedon. He was located and interviewed. There was no evidence found, and he was released. The investigation is still ongoing, and the ATF has not released the scene. We do have a structural engineer coming tomorrow to assess the situation. And at this time, I will open it up to any questions for myself, Chief Haley, Chief Grooms, or Dwayne Elam.
What were the reasons that led you to believe he was a person of interest?
You want to answer that, Chief?
During the interviews...
Could you step in front of
right
the
here.
During the interviews earlier this morning, there was some indications from some of the people we spoke to that identified this person as leaving the area right about the time that the fire was noticed or located. So we needed to talk to anybody and everybody that was in the area to see whether it was, what information they may have had or anything like that. So he was definitely somebody that we needed to talk to see what kind of information he may have or if there was any involvement at all. And at this point, we have no evidence to indicate that he was involved in the start of that fire.
Can you say that he was in the area? Or?
I can't. We've got eyewitnesses that indicate that he was. He denies having been in the area. So,
where does the investigation go from here?
We're continuing to work the scene, attempting to collect evidence. Any information that is gleaned from interviews that we've conducted are being followed up with.
What do you need from the public at this point?
Anybody that has any information, may have seen anybody coming, from the area or have been told any, given any information, contact us and let us know and let us follow up with those interviews if necessary.
At this point, Fire Chief, if you could.
Yes.
Could you step in front of the mic as well?
Sure.
Any early indication what might have started the fire?
No, not at this time. Like I say, you're still collecting just all the evidence you can collect, and as we cool it down and start to dig through it, they'll look for more evidence in that area.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Could you give us some context on the historic buildings? What do they mean to the area a little more?
Oh, yeah, these buildings have been there. Wagoner is the first city in the state of Oklahoma, if you didn't know that. So these buildings have been around here for a while. We lost a couple of viable businesses. I really want to encourage those business owners to rebuild, and I was speaking to some people at the county courthouse this morning, and talking about Wagoner being the county seat and being the first city in the state of Oklahoma Indian Territory, how detrimental it is to our downtown, which we're just starting to revitalize and do our streetscape. So the Al drug business, that's a devastating loss because that thing's been there forever, been a local drugstore, and the amount of rehabilitation that they have just done lately, it's pretty sad. And like Chief said, the investigation is still ongoing. We do have structural engineers coming in tomorrow. Hopefully they can let us know if any of those buildings are savable, because we'd surely hate to lose that facade, for sure.
You have, I think it's to the west on the street, there's a couple other facades where, for whatever reason, it's just the skeleton of the building still. Would the hope be to try to save at least the fronts of them as much as you can?
Yes, so that's what we want to encourage, and we don't really know how we're going to go forward without talking to the structural engineer, but what we would like to do is to at least save those facades if that is possible.
Do you think that there is a suspect out there that you're looking for, or is this?
Not at this time. I know very little about the investigation. I know the ATF has not released the scene, and they are still investigating, following up things. Like I said, there's what Chief Grooms just said, is that they're collecting evidence, and if anyone in the public has seen or heard or anything like that, that would greatly help us out.
And do we know where exactly it started? I know there's conflict.
We do know which building it started in. We do not know exactly. I know the state fire marshal's been here, and like I said, it's really still a hot scene, as you would say. I know we've got to watch it another 24 hours. It will be shut down, the site, just like it is today if you were out there. And once again, hopefully with the fire marshal and the structural engineer coming back tomorrow to take a look at that, we will know more.
And which building was that exactly?
We call it the antique building. There was an antique auction house that was a weekly auction house on the bottom that had apartments at the top.
Can you say it was on the top that you thought it started, or in the bottom of the unit?
That's what we currently think at this time, but
On the top.
correct, yes, second floor.
And can you talk about a lot of people coming through, looking at the buildings, emotional? I mean, kind of explain to other people what they're feeling.
Oh yes. Last night it was pretty devastating. I know we were out there all night. I know Chief Grooms and Dwayne Elam and Chief Haley. We were out there till late hours of the night. People were just hearing about it through the news media, coming up, telling stories. Remembering it. What it looked like in 1942, and there's a lot of emotions. This community, those buildings may just be buildings to outsiders, but to us locals that live here, we've done business and merchandise in and out of those buildings for a very long time.
Chief Grooms, if you could, when
Sure.
you were out there chatting a little bit, you were kind of describing to me how you thought the fire moved through the buildings.
Yes.
Can you give me an example? If we think it started in the top floor of the antique building, walk me through how you think it spread, and then obviously you guys prevented it from getting to some other buildings.
Well, they'll burn across the top of the buildings a lot of times, and then if you notice that building where it had the little break between them and the small building in the middle, they had windows on both sides. Well, that's another place for it to cross. And so once it burns to the windows, it just goes to the next window. If you notice on Al Drug that they did have a fire break down the middle, but sometimes years past they put a door through there so that you had a door leading through your fire breaks, and so that's why the fire spread. So it moves across the buildings on the second floor, then it burns down.
Can you talk about your efforts to stop it from going east into what I think is also an antique place as well as?
Well, I think it would be in the south.
South. I think you're
South. South, we put a ladder up on there, and before we had our ladder truck set up, we put a ladder up on there and went up on top with hoses and drove it back off the roof. It burned across about 30–40% of that roof, and the damage to the top of that roof was a lot. It's a lot more damage than we first thought. When I first got up and put water on it, I didn't think it was that bad, but after going up and taking another look this morning, there's a lot more damage to that roof.
And we have heard that we think there's water and smoke damage to that.
Yes, there is water and smoke damage to that building.
Can you talk about the extensiveness of it, or what type of?
Well, they're going to have to. It doesn't look that bad when you walk through it, and we took a lot of the people that lived there and the owners through it, and and it doesn't look that bad. But once you start tearing into stuff, it's hard. We really can't determine that how much damage is there. They have to bring people in that's their specialty.
Is there the potential then that we have 5 buildings then potentially lost through this?
Sure.
How many people were displaced through all of it?
My understanding, we had 4 families. Correct.
Are they being helped?
Yes. Red Cross is absolutely helping them, and I'd like to put a shout out to all of the 100 plus firefighters that we had show up last night, from all of the communities around, and also Sheriff's Department and our local ambulance and our local police department on traffic control, emergency services. Yes. Any other questions?
Can you talk about just what's going on out there right now when we watch it? We can still see water getting poured in sometimes.
Sure.
Still smoking. What phase would you call this right now?
We're just down in the overhaul phase right now, and we don't just want to sit there. They have tin and stuff that ends up on the ground, and then the other debris where the roofs and stuff fell through, and it burns underneath. And we can spray water on it 24/7, and when we stop, in an hour it's going to be burning again. You kind of have to let that loose material burn out, and then if it sparks up an area and starts making too much smoke, or gets close to another building, then we apply water to it and knock it back down. So we're just slowly letting that burn through.
How long do you expect this part to take?
It could take up to 3 or 4 days. Any other questions?
I just want to make it really clear. So the release of the suspect, does that mean you no longer think it's arson, or what does that exactly mean?
It means that we don't have any evidence to prove that number one, there wasn't arson. The investigation is still ongoing. We're doing interviews. We're collecting physical evidence and things of that nature. It doesn't mean that we don't know that it is arson, but we can't rule it out either. So we're just early on in the investigation. He just described, Chief Grooms just described that we are actually still actively trying to keep the fire down to get it completely out, in order for investigators to actually go in and do some more physical evidence collection. So at this point, we're just too early on to be able to say, yes, it was an arson, no, it wasn't an arson, or that this guy is a suspect. He obviously didn't make any admissions or anything of that nature, didn't have any confessions or anything of that nature. So we don't have that. We don't have for lack of a better term, a smoking gun type situation. So we're just early on in the investigation.
Any other questions? I would like to dispel one rumor. I think it was said on Facebook and a lot of other places yesterday that we actually ran out of water. That is absolutely not true. We dumped 650,000 gallons in 5 hours on there. I'll let Mr. Elam speak about that, but we did not run out of water. So I would like to dispel that rumor. Mr. Elam, you want to say anything?
Yeah, you want to say something?
Don't need to unless you guys have any questions. You took care of that conversation for me.
And that normal of us shutting water down at certain times during fighting the fire, that's normal process. We don't want to we don't want to push one of our resources if we don't have to. And a lot of times if you still have small fires, you have firefighters, they want to spray water on that fire even though we don't really need to. We need to keep the water on the fire that could do more damage. And so we get to a certain point, we go around and we start shutting them down.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Do those lofts have a name? Are they called the Stacy Lynn lofts, or is that next?
Stacy Lynn Lofts, absolutely. That's the one that had the water damage, and it was not destroyed by fire, but it had smoke and water damage, and that's where they were successfully able to get the fire stopped.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.